Alright, hi everybody and welcome to another very exciting episode of the Android Development Video Tutorial Series. I'm your host Matthias Reich and today we'll take a look at user notification. Now, of course, there are several ways in Android to notify the user, but this episode is mainly about user notification using toast messages. Now, if you don't know what toast messages are, don't worry, I'll show you in a second. But we will also cover several other topics, like, for example, we'll take another look at click listeners. Alright, so let's take a look at the application we're about to create. So here it is. As you can see, you have an edit text view up here, then you have 9 buttons labeled with numbers, and down here you have 2 more buttons. One says multiple of 4 ? And the other one says reset. Alright, now this is probably a very useless application, but nevertheless it's real fun to play around with it. So what it does is if you click a button, like for example button number 2, it'll add the amount that is written on the button to that edit text view up here. So if you click 2, it will add 2. If you click 4, it will add 4 to that 2 to make it a total of 6. And then you can add 7, makes 13, 15 is 28, 23, 51, you can add 1, 2, and then at any time you can click that button to check if the number up here is actually a multiple of 4. Alright, so if you click that, you see here's a little message, and this is actually a toast message, right? So it fades in, it stays for a couple of seconds, and then it fades out automatically. And so now if you click it, it says, sorry, 54 is not a multiple of 4. So alright, maybe we'll add, 8 more or 6 more, make it 60, and now we click it again, and now it says yes, 60 is a multiple of 4, and the proof is 15 times 4 equals 60, right? So you can, sum up any number here and just check if that number is a multiple of 4. Now, this is pretty cool, but you can also change the base number. Currently, it is checked if this number up here is a multiple of 4. But in fact, you can set any number on this screen as the base number. So you could actually check this number if it is a multiple of 7. And all you need to do is you need to click the button with a 7 and just hold the mouse button. Alright, so just click it and hold it. And now when you release it, you can see that it actually turned red. And the 4, on the other hand, turned black. And also, that label on that button down here changed to multiple of 7 ? Right? So if you click that now, it'll actually check that number if it is a multiple of 7. And that's the case, because 68 times 7 equals 476. And now you can, add something, change it, and you see, sorry, that's not a multiple of 7. Still not. No. Oh, and yeah, and 637 is actually a multiple of 7. So you can set any number as the base number and check this number if it is a multiple of that base number, right? And if you want to start over, you can just click that reset button here, and you will get a small message, everything has been reset, and you see that the number up here was set to 0, and the default base number was also set to 4 again. So now you can start over, like, adding numbers and checking them as you like. So as I said, probably this application is not very useful, but it covers certain important facts, and it's also pretty fun to play around with. So this is the application I want to create today, and I'll show you how it's done right now. Alright, so here we are in Eclipse, and today we actually won't start from scratch because it would take too much time to create that layout and to write the code for that application. So what I did, I already created the project, and also I created that layout. So this is a pretty easy layout. As I said, I won't create it from scratch, but I want to go over the details with you. So I'll change to the main XML, come up here to the top, and as you can see, our surrounding linear layout has just a padding of 8 dp, and then up here is our edit text, which is set to fill parent and wrap content. Then it's also set to be a single line, and we set editable to false because we don't want to have the user add any numbers or text in there. Then the input type we set to none. Now we did that previously, I guess it was on episode number 3. But we did that from the Java source code, but you can also set that property here in the XML. What this does is it prevents the soft keyboard from appearing, because normally if you focus an edit text view, there will be a soft keyboard on screen where you can type letters, and we don't want that for our application here, so I set the input type to none, and so that soft keyboard won't show up. Then I set long clickable to false, and this is a concept we will actually learn in this episode, because you already know that there are on-click listeners, right? You can listen for button clicks, for example. But you can also have a long click on some view object, like a button, and then do something else, right? So, for example, if you long click on an edit view, it'll actually show some context menu where you can, select cut and paste or such things. And since we don't want that for our application, we set long clickable to false. All right. So then the default text here is 0, and we set the gravity to right to just align the text to the right. And then we assigned an ID to that edit text, and we call it text. All right, so what follows are 3 linear layouts that are horizontally aligned, and each of these linear layout contains 3 buttons, right? So each linear layout is 1 button row, and those buttons are just set to fill parent, and they have a weight of 1, so they share the space that is given to them equally. And each button has a text, which is defined in that strings XML, and it actually has an ID, and they are just numbered like button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4, and so on. So those 3 linear layouts here just resemble the button rows, right? And then down here is a last linear layout, which contains actually 2 buttons, and those are the buttons on the bottom, like, a multiple of 4 and reset, right? And what I did to make it a bit more fancy, I just, I'll set a text color for both of those buttons, and I also set a text color for that button number 3, because I wanted to make that button the default base number button, right? It's the button with a label of 4. So this is pretty much everything. It's pretty simple, really. And let's have a look at the strings XML real quick. As you can see, we have our app name here, as usual. And then we have 9 strings, like B1 to B9, which are the button labels. And then 2 more strings, one for the report button, it says multiple of 4, and 1 string for the reset button, that says obviously reset. Alright, so that's pretty much everything. Of course, you can download that project as a zip file from our website at www.xtensivearts.com, and there you can have a look at that layout and at those strings XML. But you'll see it's pretty much pretty easy stuff that we covered previously. All right, good. So let's switch to our Java source code and actually, start coding. All right. So first, we want to actually create some global variables for our for our on-click listeners and for our edit text and so forth. So let's start. We'll just create an on-click listener, and we call that button listener. All right. So close that off. Of course, we need to import that. And then I want to create another on-click listener, but this time it's an on long click listener. All right, and I'll call that button long listener. And again, we need to import that. All right, the next thing, we want our edit view. Let's call that some text. And then actually an integer, and that integer is our sum. Then we want to create another integer, and this one will hold our current base number, right? And we'll initialize that variable to 4 because the button with the number 4 is pre-selected. All right, so just let me import that. Where is it? Oh, I'm sorry. Of course, it's not edit view, it's edit text, right? So just import that. All right, and then finally, I want to create an integer, and this one will hold our current base number button ID, and that is equal to r dot id dot button 3, because button number 3 is the one with a 4 on it. All right, so this is all we need for our global variables. So let's come down in this method here on create. And the first thing we actually want to do is we want to create our two button listeners, right? So just type button listener is equal to new on click listener. Close that off. And then we want to import, or we add the unimplemented method. All right. So I can clear that here. All right, this is actually pretty simple. So at first we want to create a local variable called b, it's type of button, and we cast that parameter v to a button. All right, so let's import that. And then we actually want to add the label, or the amount, the number on that label from that button to our sum. So we type sum plus equals, and we're actually going to use a helper method of that integer class. So we'll type integer dot parse int, and it expects a string, and the string we want to parse is actually b dot get text, which is the label on that button, right? And so now it gives us an error, and that's because get text, as you can see here, returns a variable of type char sequence, but parse int expects a string. So what we want to do is we want to cast that result to a string. Alright, and so now it works fine. And finally, we want to display the new sum in that edit text view up there, and so we'll type sum text dot set text, right? And we want to set that to sum dot to string. Okay, and so this is pretty much everything we want to do in this on-click listener. Alright, so next I want to create that button long listener, and that is equal to new on long click listener, and again we just want to implement that method. And okay, now this gets called if we want to actually change the base number by long clicking on the button, right? So we need a couple of variables here. First, our button B, that is our parameter V cast to a button. And second, we want another button, we call it old, and cast that to a button, and we want to find view by ID. And now this will hold the button that currently resembled the base number. So if you change that base number for the first time, the old button would be the button with the number 4 on it. So but how do we know which button actually is the current base number button? Well, that's simple, because we define it up here in our global variables as our current base number button ID, right? And we set that to our ID button 3. So we want to find exactly that ID. So instead of using our r.id.something, we just use current base number button ID. Alright, so this will return our button that currently is the base number button. And also we want to get our button here for our report button, which says multiple of 4 or 7, depending on which number you selected. And we actually want to find view by ID, and here we can use our r.id.report. Alright. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to switch colors. So the currently selected base number button should become black, while the newly selected base number button should turn red. Alright, so let's set the text color on that old base number button by calling set text color, and we'll use that helper method of that color class, which is parse color, and we want to set that to black. Alright, and then on the new button, which is our B, we want to set the text color to be a red color, right? So we just set that to FF0000, and that should do that trick. Alright, and then we have to change the label on that report button, because now it doesn't say multiple of 4 anymore, but it says something, like multiple of 13 maybe, or 7. So we want to type report dot set text, and we want to set that to multiple of, and then plus b dot get text plus question mark. Alright, so now the new label will change to multiple of, and then it will insert whatever number is written on that button we just selected to be the new base number button. Alright, so now we have to update our two variables for our current base number and the current base number button ID. So the current base number is equal to integer dot parseInt dot casted to string b dot get text close parentheses and semicolon. Oh, I'm sorry, it has to be capital S. Alright, so there we have our new current base number, and now we actually need to update that current base number button ID variable, which we used up here, so that when we long click on another button next time, it'll actually find the correct current base number button ID. So set current, and here's the helpful tip: if you press Control space, it'll actually show you all available variables or methods which start with current, right? So you don't have to type that each time, you can just select it here, current base number button ID, and that is equal to b dot get ID. Alright, and that's pretty much it. Now what we need to change here is, as you can see down here, there is a return statement, and it says return false by default. If that long click listener returns false, it means that the long click handler failed to handle that long click, and so it should default to that normal click. Now the effect of that in our application is, if you leave it like this, like return false, then if you actually select a new base number by long clicking on a button and releasing the mouse button afterwards, it'll actually add that number you just selected to the sum. But we don't want that. So we'll change the return statement down here to true, to signal that application, alright, we handled the long click properly and you don't need to do anything else now. Alright, so those are our two button listeners, and what we are going to do next is we just get all those buttons in our layout and assign those listeners to those buttons. Now maybe we should start with our edit text view, so just type some text is equal to edit text, and then find view by ID, r.id. and then text. Okay. Okay, so now we have to add our 9 buttons, so I'll create them as local variables. Button B1 is equal to button, find view by ID, r.id. and then button 1. And now I want to actually add those two button listeners up there by typing b1 dot set on click listener, and we want to set that to button listener. All right, and then we want to add the on long click listener by setting set on long click listener, and it shall be button long listener. All right, so now I'm going to copy this here and just paste it in. All right, and of course I need to change those variables here. So this will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, as well as here 2, 3, oh, I'm sorry, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and finally at the end button 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and we're done. All right. So now we actually have to connect our report button and our reset button. So I'll type report is equal to button, find view by ID, r.id.report, semicolon, and then we want to add an on-click listener to that button, but this time we'll just add it inline style, so we don't need to create an extra variable for that. We just create it sort of on the fly. So call set on-click listener is equal to new on-click listener, and simply add that method, and there we go. Alright, so here we actually want to output those user notifications with those toast messages, and to do that we create two variables. First, one of type char sequence, call that CS, and one of type int, and we call that duration. Alright, and now we actually have to write an if-else statement, because now we want to check that number, that sum number, if it is a multiple of that base number. Alright, and to do that we write if sum modulo current base number double equal 0, and sum is not equal to 0. Then we want to do something. So now what does this mean? This statement says just take whatever sum is and divide it by current base number, which is 4 by default, and then return the rest. That is what that modulo operator here is for. Now, if the rest is equal to 0, then clearly sum is a multiple of current base number, and therefore we can notify the user by telling him, yes, sum is a multiple of whatever number you selected, right? But this should only be the case if sum is not equal to 0, because if sum is equal to 0, there's really no point in testing that number if it is a multiple of something else. So this is our if statement for the case that sum is in fact a multiple of that selected number. So now we want to set up our output text, and therefore we use our char sequence CS is equal to yes, and then we want to write our sum, and is a multiple of plus, and then current base number plus, I'll make a new line here, and then you want to type a backslash and an n, and that is a code for a new line. So everything that is written after that /n will be in a new line. And I want to actually write proof plus sum divided by current base number plus times plus current base number plus new line is equal to plus sum. Or actually we can add a period here. So this looks a bit complicated, but it really is no rocket science. So what it basically does, it just inserts those variables like sum and current base number in that string, right? So it says yes, the sum, it's printed out here, is a multiple of the currently selected base number, for example 4, and the proof is that sum divided by current base number times current base number is sum. And that's pretty straightforward. And so the next thing we want to do, we want to actually set the duration for that toast message. So I thought it would be nice if you have a bit more text like we do have here. It would be nice to display it a bit longer. So I want to set the duration is equal to toast dot length long. And now if that sum is actually not a multiple of our current base number, we actually want to cover that as well by setting a different text, right? And so we want to write sorry plus sum plus is not a multiple of plus current base number plus period. All right. And then I want to set that duration in that case to length short. All right. And now we want to actually show that toast message. So that is pretty easy. We just type toast dot make text, and now it expects a context, right? So you don't have to worry about that. Just add get application context, open parentheses, close parentheses. That's a helper method which returns the context of the current application, and that should be fine for that parameter. So next parameter is our text, and we want to insert our CS variable here, our char sequence, and then duration is actually, we already called that variable duration, so we leave it at that. And then we actually want to use method chaining, meaning that you can chain methods together. So we want to call that show method of that toast class, and then we can close it off with a semicolon. So now this single line here will display our toast. message. All right. And that is pretty much everything we had to do for that report button. Now, finally, we need to code the behavior for that reset button. So create a new variable called reset and find view by ID r dot id dot, and then I called reset, and reset dot set on click listener new on click listener all right, add the unimplemented methods, and we're good to go. Now first we want to create some variables again. Create a button called def for default, and then find view. You can actually, you see, type control and space, and it will automatically complete that method name, right? So you have to type less, and we actually want to select the default button. Now we decided that this is button number 3 with a label of 4, so I'll choose that ID. Next, I want to get the current the current base number button ID, right? It's the same that we did above, and finally I want to get that report button again. Find view by ID r dot id dot report. All right. So since this is our reset function, we want to reset everything back to the default state and default settings, right? So at first, let's switch colors. So set def dot set text color to color dot parse color, and we want set the default button back to a red color. I forgot the quotes. So and then the current or the old base number button, we want to set that text color back to, you can actually choose black. It's fine. And then we want to set the text on that report button. Set text. We want to set that back to multiple of plus def dot get text. Where is it? Get text plus question mark. All right, so now we want to actually set the current base number back to the number that's on the default button. So type parse int, cast that to a string, and we want to get def dot get text, and then we want to close that, and the current base number button ID, that could be def dot get ID. Okay. All right, then we have to set the sum variable back to 0, of course, and the text in that edit text view, we want to set that to 0 as well. So called text, set text, and set that to 0. Alright, so finally we want to notify the user that everything has been reset, and we'll do that by typing toast dot make text. Again, just type get application context here. Now this time I actually want to hard code that text. Oh, I'm sorry, we'll get a new line here. So I want to type everything has been reset, and the duration, let's make that toast length short. Oh, I'm sorry, length short. Alright, so close it off. And yeah, that's pretty much everything there is to this application. So just, save your file, and now you can test if everything works correctly as expected. So just click that green arrow here and run it as an Android application. And let's have a look. So here we are in our Android emulator, and as you can see, it looks exactly as the application I showed you at the beginning of this episode. So now you can actually click buttons here and check multiple of 4. Yes, it is, of course. And add some more. You can see 10 is not a multiple of 4. Actually, you can see we missed a space here, so that's nothing too serious. So you can select numbers, and you see it changes accordingly. The label on that button changes accordingly. And yeah, that's pretty much everything there is to it, right? So I hope you found this tutorial useful, and if so, please comment on the blog on our website at www.xtensivearts.com. I really appreciate the comments I got on the other episodes. They're very nice, very kind. Thank you so much. Again, if you have any suggestions, just leave a comment, and you can also find the zipped project file for this project we created today at our website as a download. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends on your favorite social bookmark platform. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next episode. My name is Matthias Reich, and I'll see you next time.